Okay, so these are the 6 steps to ensure that your emails never go to spam. Now, it's important because a lot of people just skip all of this altogether and then they wonder why their emails never land in the inbox folder. And the inbox folder is where your prospects and your customers are going to be. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up something called DMARC. Now, since February 2024, this has been a requirement for both Yahoo and Google to have this set up. If you don't have this set up, make sure you do because it's very important for your domain deliverability. Whether you use GoDaddy or Shopify or, Namecheap, you've got to go there and create a new record. And this new record is going to be the DMARC record. So there's 3 things you have to keep in mind. Number 1, the host name. Number 2, the record type. And number 3, the value. So what you got to do is you got to select the record type as a text record, so TXT, and then you got to add underscore DMARC as the host value, or underscore DMARC dot subdomain if you're using a subdomain. The last thing you got to do is you basically got to copy and paste this. You're going to have access to this document, don't worry. So you're going to copy and paste this. You're just going to change the mail to address to your email address. Sorry, not your email address, but your brand's email address. And I really recommend you filter out emails from DMARC or DMARC reports. You'll see it when you set this up. And then from the beginning, I recommend P equals none. It doesn't really matter that much. I'm not going to get into the granular details. Just set it to none and you will be sweet to go. And after you're done with that, you're going to click save/create, and then you will have created the record. And you can set the timing to whatever you want it to be. TTL, so the time to live, you can set it to 30 minutes, automatic, 1 day, it doesn't really matter. Just make sure it's 1 day or less. And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to validate that this is set up correctly using a tool called MX Toolbox. It's on the screen now, and we're going to just run a DMARC record check with MX Toolbox to validate that your DMARC record is set up correctly. The next thing, which is step 2, is a dedicated sending domain. Now, for the dedicated sending domain, you can go through Klaviyo official tutorial, which I'm going to put on the screen now. And they call it a branded sending domain, which is a dedicated sending domain, which is what I've put. You can watch this video and you can understand why it's important in more detail. But to summarize why it's important is because you're going to be using your own email address, your own domain, rather than a shared domain by Klaviyo. So a lot of Klaviyo default emails will come from Klaviyo Mail and not your domain. So if you are branda.com, Klaviyo is going to send it as klaviyoemail.com, not branda.com. So making sure this is set up also automatically sets up a lot of things like SPF and BKIM, which I'm not going to get into detail. But once you follow this guide, this is how it should look. For example, for Heimdall's workshop, we're just going to put Warriors sending domain. So emails are going to come from warriors.heimdall's workshop. As it's a Viking brand, it makes sense. And then the next step is you're going to select the DNS provider, which I talked about earlier. And then you're just going to verify the records. And once you verify the records, it's going to ask you to confirm. And once you confirm, you're ready to go. And it may take up to 48 hours for these newly updated settings to be live. But it's very, very, very important to make sure your emails don't land in spam. Because if you're using a shared domain, other people might have messed up and you don't want to let them affect your deliverability. The third thing, now this is actually an optional step. Now, BIMI is not absolutely necessary because it is going to be an expense because you have to pay for it. Basically, it's just showing your logo in mailboxes and that costs money. It's not that important at the beginning. Okay, I'm not going to explain all these steps, but basically you got to pay for a certificate and that costs money to get this up and running. And it's a lot of steps, as you can see. Fourth step is spam testing. So what you can do is in Klaviyo, you can actually send yourself a test email like I have described in this GIF, right? You can put send test and then put your email here, right? And then you can just send it to yourself. And then alternatively, you can use a bunch of spam testing websites that we frequently use, which is Mail Tester and Mail Genius, to ensure that our emails that we send out for our clients are not going to the spam folder. And if it is, we can troubleshoot it by sending it to all of these different softwares, such as Mail Tester and Mail Genius. Now, the next thing is going to be creating the necessary segments, right? So I've made a guide on the exact segments that you need. I'll attach that in the description as well. But basically, you need to send to engaged segments and you have to exclude disengaged segments. But that's what you got to do. And you also want to create some segments such as spam traps, which is a particular segment to filter out people that are probably going to end up in spam if you keep sending to these people. And then the final thing you got to do is you got to start sending out warm-up campaigns. So these two kind of go together because if you segment correctly, you can segment for very, very, very engaged users and target them so that you know they're very likely to open an email or click an email or reply to an email. And it's important that with these warm-up emails, you send plain text, not HTML/design/fancy emails. You want to send very basic emails that gets them to open, click, or reply. And what I would do is I would send 5 campaigns the first week. Seriously, 5 campaigns the first week. Obviously, if you see open rates be like 10%, you can stop there and start thinking of what are the next steps. How can we fix this? And then once you figure out, okay, maybe I need to send to only 14-day engaged audiences. So that means people that have engaged in the last 14 days or even 7 days if it's really cooked, right? And you can filter them by openers, clickers, and even things that they do on your storefront. So maybe you only send it to customers. So you know that they're gonna definitely open, right? Maybe you can send it to last very recent purchases and give them something that's not gonna piss them off. You send them an email that reassures them. So this way, you're very likely to have really high open rates and really high click rates, and these things all help with your domain deliverability. But long story short, for these 5 emails that you want to send in the first week or however long you want to expand this testing period or warm-up period, I should say, just make sure that you segment with really targeted audiences that are very, very, very engaged. So you have the highest chance of having high opens, high clicks, and high replies. Sometimes, you want people to reply and you don't just want them to open and click. You have to kind of clickbait them in a way that's not like YouTube thumbnail clickbaity. You just need good copy and both the subject line and the actual email itself. And the last thing I'm actually going to talk about is some resources that you want to use. Okay. So I like to use Omnisend for testing the subject line to see if it's too long, too short. It ballparks if it's good or bad. So the first one is Omnisend's email subject line tester. For example, guide pop-ups that get high signups, and I scored 83%. It tells me the character and the length, and it tells me if it's too long or too short. Okay. And it says that subject lines that contain more than 6 words may not be seen. Okay. And it gives an AI summary and its opinion on the wording, if it's helpful words, if it's negative words, and if it's, really, really persuasive for people to click. And then you also want to check your HTML/non-plain text emails spam score. So for this, I'm going to take this email as an example from Neurojit. You're going to go to Gmail. You don't necessarily have to go to Gmail if you use other emails, but I'm just going to show this as an example. You go to more, you go to show original, and then it's going to show this, right? So what you got to do is you basically just got to copy the clipboard, right? Now it's copy. And then you go here and then you check the score, okay? And then that's basically it. As you can see, it's very, very positive. The score of that email got really, really good results. And also there's another really good spam checking tool, which is by MailReach. And this can give you more information on why your emails are going to spam. MailReach's spam checker is very similar to all the other ones. It's just an extra spam test report that you can utilize. One of the last resources that I'm going to share with you is a image compressor that you probably used actually called TinyPNG. And this software basically compresses your image file size so that it takes less time to load emails. And that helps with emails being open, because if it takes more than 2 seconds for the email to load, if you're sending one image, for example, then people are probably going to click off. Or if the fold has like a lot of images and they take forever to load, you're going to have a high bounce rate in your emails. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is TinyPNG or TinyJPEG or any other image compressor. I use these guys as an example because they've been the easiest to use for me personally. So you just got to drag an image here and then it will compress your image. That being said, guys, that concludes this video. I hope you got value out of this video. And if you are a brand that's doing 50K or more, I'd love to have a chat with you and see how me and my team can help you improve your email marketing and SMS marketing with no strings attached. See you guys in the next video.